everyone, welcome to another Random Talk Sunday. Apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over this Labor Day weekend, and so I won't be able to be caught up with videos up until now on this point, which should be Tuesday. But without further ado, let me address what I wanted to talk about for this particular Random Talk Sunday, and that has to do with the Rio 2016 Olympics. Those just recently passed. I believe it's been like almost a month or so. I didn't get a chance to sort of express my thoughts as far as the whole event was concerned, and I thought it would be interesting to kind of discuss my personal thoughts on it. So, this year, since it was in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the Olympics gave a very kind of exotic feel to it. Especially with the opening and closing ceremonies of the games. It was quite fascinating to see all of the sporting events kind of unroll themselves over the 2 weeks that the games took place. I was actually surprised by how well executed the Rio de Janeiro Olympics were, because I think there was a lot of speculation going in, from the water problems that they had to the security issues to the fact that Rio de Janeiro is one city that is known for being or at least having a lot of poverty and unfortunately crime. So yeah, there was, I think, a lot of speculation going in, and I was sort of against Rio de Janeiro having the Olympics because of these issues when I just saw how much it's affecting Brazil. And then the other part of me thought, well, I mean, it would probably be good for the country as a whole to at least have some way to generate money. And it seems like the Olympics brought that. And surprisingly, for what it was worth, I think they actually did a really decent job for what they could produce as far as an Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. The only really two hiccups that I really saw out of that whole Olympics were the pool. One of the pools was green for some weird reason, and the whole Ryan Lochte scandal, and then maybe some altercations with robbery and whatnot have probably been reported, but that's kind of, I think, something that's not just unique to Rio de Janeiro. I think if you put it in any major city, you're obviously going to have those security concerns, and unfortunately sometimes maybe some bad things can happen. But for what could have happened, and regarding as far as the the level of tension that has been going on around the world, I think it's definitely safe to say that Rio did pull off actually an Olympics that was quite nice. It was definitely unique as far as kind of showing a little bit of the Brazilian culture, and certain parts of what they showcased were quite interesting. I just wouldn't say that it wasn't the best Olympics, honestly, in my opinion, but for what it could have been turned out to be, it definitely, I guess you could say, exceeded my expectations as far as an Olympics is concerned. Now, there's some things that I think are more so having to do with the media as opposed to just the Olympics and how which they were run, because I think the media honestly did a poor job in trying to cover the Olympics, because they would have prime time at like 8 o'clock, and then it would go on really late and late into the evening. And usually I remember in the past it being a lot quicker, like usually you would tune in at around 6 or 7 or something like that. It wouldn't go on for so late. Or if it did go on for so late, it was only because there were so many different events going on. And so I think that could have been orchestrated a whole lot better. Um, Also, another thing in which I think the media unfortunately did a poor job of, at least within the United States, again, this is more so a criticism of US media because I don't know how other broadcasting networks work as far as how they covered the Olympics, but within the United States, not only did I think they did a poor coverage job as far as timing is concerned, I also think that they didn't do necessarily that good of a job showcasing the events because sometimes you would just see semifinal after semifinal after semifinal, and really people want to tune in for who's going to win the medals. I mean, that's what people watch the Olympics for. And to see time and time again people doing semifinal after semifinal, um, this goes from running to swimming, all of that, that just gets really tiresome to sit through. And it was definitely nice to have the highlights. I mean, obviously, the internet really did provide a significant amount of highlights, but at the same time, it would have been nice had they covered a little bit more of that angle of just going through all the different finales instead of dragging it out for however long. And I think probably a part of that was due to marketing, because there was obviously a lot of advertisements throughout the Olympics, and that was kind of a bummer to sit through all of them because it was literally like every other, um, 5, not even like maybe 10 to 15 minutes, you would get commercial or something, or you would get literally like 5 or 10 minute intervals and then commercial. So it really did feel like that they were stretching out the commercials way too much. And I thought that was a little bit tiresome and it got really annoying really quick. Again, I don't mind them showing commercials. That's not my issue. My issue is them constantly force feeding you it, every 10 minutes. I think that they should spread it out a little bit more as far as the commercials are concerned and just do less of them. Because at the end of the day, you always end up seeing the same commercials anyway. I mean, at least for the most part, that's what I ended up having as far as an experience is concerned. So again, I think this Olympics more so, it not necessarily has to do with so much of, the host nation and city doing a poor job, more so the media coverage of it was, I think, very poorly executed. Also, they didn't really talk about Brazil. Like, I didn't see um, anything really that Brazil had to offer. Usually within the Olympics, they kind of have some reporter or somebody go around and talk about like, ooh, look how cool this part of the city is. And, they would just do that as like a little mini break before they would go back to the sports or events of the day. And it seemed like they didn't want to do that here. It seems like they changed the whole formatting. Um, you know, I mean, I would rather sit down and like learn a little bit about the culture and whatnot and have that kind of experience as opposed to sitting through a bunch of semifinals where, the outcome is almost literally pointless because, I mean, most people tune in to watch the finales of these sporting events. So I think that's just my personal perspective, though, on the whole thing and how it was orchestrated. I mean, it's definitely not a poor Olympics. I wouldn't say that. It's just I would say it's not one of the better ones that I've seen. But at the same time, for what Brazil has to offer and for what they were able to pull off, they pulled off a pretty decent Olympics, I have to say. For what it could have been, it definitely exceeded my expectations. Um, Again, it's not enough to be as the top Olympics, but at the same time, it's still definitely something that caught me by surprise of being a lot better than I initially thought. And for what could have happened and what could have gone wrong and what could have um, been uh, could have been a chaotic Olympics, it didn't turn out to be that way at all, really. And so I think that's what's good, at least. And you got to see a lot of returning athletes and up and coming athletes, and it was just nice to see again the whole world coming together and cheering for Team USA, and all that is great. We came back with the most medals apparently, so that was nice, and it was a feel good Olympics for what it was worth. Um, but I think that's really all I can say about it. That's just really my personal takeaways from it. I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say if they thought these Olympics were well put together, if they thought that there could have been some improvements. What was the coverage like? Did you enjoy the sports? Did you have some countries that you were rooting for? Be more than happy to hear anybody's thoughts. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say for this particular Random Talk Sunday. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.